Hi, this is Ram here. Born, raised Bangalorean, but by profession I'm a CEO of a consulting firm called Bridgepath Innovations.
Hi, this is Dakshayini. I'm a university guidance counselor at an IB school in Bangalore.
We thought we'll take this opportunity and kind of talk a little bit about, how we met Shyam and got introduced to PeakAlpha. Shyam had just about started PeakAlpha, and obviously he was kind of touring different campuses to talk about what is financial planning, why is it important, and so on. And at the time I used to work at Wipro. So this session announcement came in as an email blast, and I wasn't sure, quite honestly, but then ended up actually attending his session. And guess what? I'm so glad that I did, because I think a lot of things that he had spoken made a lot of sense. And again, coming from a very conservative, background, for me at that point, saving was all about, fixed deposits or buying land and buying, a site. And that was the notion of what investment and building financial security was about. But that meeting, I would say, turned a lot of things around, the myth around, financial planning.
For me, I think meeting them was a kind of reassurance. Back then when we started this journey, we were very young and we barely understood what financial planning means, and there's something called financial planning. And I come from a philosophy of, my parents brought me up saying it's not important what you create, but it's important what you leave behind, what we already have. So creating wealth was not our prime importance at that time. Sustain ourselves and not be dependent on anyone when we get older was the motto of starting this whole exercise. I think at that point we felt, we could bear all our trust on Shyam and Priya, because they had the background that they came from, and also the convincing, conversations that we had with them.
Of course, I know that PeakAlpha celebrated their 20th birthday. We celebrated our 19th. So it kind of talks about the longevity of this relationship. And when we kind of, thinking about 19th, I think during the course of this entire association, I think when we started working with Sundar and Priya and the PeakAlpha team, our kids were still in school. And one is now, after some years of working, is pursuing a master's, and our daughter has now started work. Now we're already talking about, how can those two come back and start working with PeakAlpha to start building their own financial security? Because it makes a lot of sense, and particularly in a turbulent world that we live in now. So I think it'll become a very generational relationship with PeakAlpha, the way I see it. But the one thing that I wanted to really share is it was not a journey where, you tell me and I will do it. I think the entire relationship was built on a premise which is extremely important to both Dakshayini and I, for sure, is extremely consultative in nature. I think, look, at the end of the day, we come from a very middle class upbringing, very conservative thought processes around. And like I said, I think my idea of investment was a fixed deposit and probably a house or a land, so that was really the framework, and that's what people around us did. So I think our initial journey was a lot in terms of clarifying our own ideas and thoughts. What I really enjoyed in the journey with PeakAlpha and the team, and particularly Sundar, because he spent a lot of the initial years with us, is allowing for a point of view to be played out. Hey, this is the way and this is what I recommend. Here's a recommendation that you might want to consider, but if you have something else, bring it forward and let's have a conversation. And that's really been the hallmark of the relationship, I would say, right from when we started even until now.
The example I would like to quote is situations like when we are stuck with debating within the family about investments, especially when it comes to children and the assets we create. So it's a typical mindset that we want to create two properties, we have two children, and therefore we need to make provision for them to, property to pass it on to them. But there have been situations when we debated almost investing in another apartment or a piece of land or a farmland. And then we went back to Shyam and Priya and had this discussion and said, is it really worth it? Are we really going to build on this, or we rather invest in something else? And pre-COVID, we both had this entrepreneurial, we wanted to start this journey with our own business ideas. And post-COVID, everything changed. And we said, let's, plunge into this. And Ram started his own company and I had my own I started a college counselling engagement, and it was going well, and now I'm employed with the school. But I think at that point, the confidence of investing in something like this and plunging into whatever ventures we wanted to was boldly taken based on our discussions with Shyam and Priya.
I think one thing that I will not forget is, again, coming from that wealth creation mindset, I think sometimes we also went overboard in terms of, getting to a point of, we're getting paranoid about wealth creation to the point that I don't think we were taking the time off to, as they say, smell the roses, have a good time. I think that came out really well. And I remember when Shyam used to, in one of the meetings, say that, hey, you know what? Spend some money. It's okay. You can afford it. And that's when I think we also started looking at, vacations, taking some time off, doing things that we enjoy. So I'd say that the journey has been a mix of great conversations, perspective, sharing information, keeping the dialogue open. And I think as a result of that, I think we are in a very comfortable place where we could not have done it by ourselves, is the way I look at it. Why are we in a space? And I think Dakshayini touched a little bit about the entrepreneurial bug. So as is the classic process, when we had this conversation, the first thing is, okay, how long do you see yourself working? I said, 50 years. And then I know Dakshayini looked at me and said, really? I said, well, by 50 at least I don't want to be running around within the corporate circles. And you know what, lo and behold, I actually did that when I was about to turn 50. And when I think about it in retrospect, I think it's got a lot to do in terms of the financial discipline, the rigor, and everything else that we, kind of spoke about. There was a very methodical way in which, we planned for the education of our children. I think both of them, knock on wood, are doing what they're doing, and I think we were able to very comfortably sort of, afford for it. And second, of course, this house and everything else that we have around us, I don't think we even hesitated a moment when she and I decided we'll take the entrepreneurial plunge. So which means I knew it was not going to be an easy journey. It's not going to be the usual paychecks that, you're used to. So how do you kind of, overcome a lot of these things? And I would say, thanks to, of course, the partnership, because I would say that, we played our parts as well, but under, I would say, very good guidance in terms of, how to stage our lives through those processes.
One of the things that I do want to talk about is our passion projects. Both Ram and I have been very adventurous in terms of exploring our interests, and I think when I was thinking about college counselling, by virtue of working with my own kids through their schooling years, I felt it's a very, very niche area that I could get into. This was like 10, 12 years ago when this market was still growing. And back then I drew a lot of inspiration from Shyam and Priya, because I took a lot of inspiration from their business model and how they talk to clients and how they giving perspective to clients. And it's very hard to predict what happens in the coming years. Same with my occupation as well. So they prepared us for the unpredictable. And even when, background, the life is going on and things are going on as usual, we never know when we might need. And with aging parents, with growing kids, and we in the middle, and I think we are the last of the generations who get to take care of the previous and the future generations. So we had to do a lot of planning in that sense. And there, I think PeakAlpha played a very important role in putting us in a space where we could envision what the coming years was going to be like. And having said that, we never, felt guilty on indulging in our shopping or, my passion for travel, taking time off. And we've traveled a lot with our children, and every year we knew that we had made room for that expenditure. So we did go out and travel a lot. We explored a lot of places, and I think when the kids were in their prime years of growing up, we built a very strong bond around traveling places. So we still connect a lot of our memories around their growing up years because we invested in traveling with them. So they learnt beyond books and we connected beyond books. And this is something that I think the planning helped us with.
Trekking, mountaineering, this has been something that's been on the top of my list. And I'd say that, during this entire, time of association with PeakAlpha, I think I was able to just do that and chase my passion. 2 big peaks, 1 book. And I think for me, those are the things that also mattered from of course, work, save, take care of people around you. I think a lot of me time, things that I wanted to pursue as hobbies, I think those are also some things that kind of played out. The underpinning has been that financial freedom, a financial understanding, how to make room for a lot of little things that mattered, because at the end of the day, like they say, it's you only live once. So you might as well take advantage of the fact that you enjoy and do things that matter to you as well. 19 years is not too long. We are looking forward to another 19, another 20 maybe. And like I said, I think it's for my kids now. And I think they understand the value of saving, because I think they have watched us in these years. Our kids understand what it means to have that financial freedom and what are the benefits of starting to plan early. I'd say we started a little late in comparison, but I think the kids are smarter, and soon they will be embarking on a similar journey with the PeakAlpha team.